People ask, do you put any of your own life experiences into your books? And the answer is yes, because I really don't know how I couldn't. If you're going to be a storyteller, you have to have lived a life, or at least been around people and somehow experienced their stories, their personalities, their way of relaying an experience or an event. For myself, I think of a whole bunch of the ones that I've been through. When I was, kind of making a sudden trip from San Antonio, Texas to Phoenix, Arizona, it was at Thanksgiving. It was during a really difficult time in my life and my family's life. And they couldn't afford to send me home, back to Vermont. So I went to live with my brother in Arizona. And I had to take a bus. And there's one thing about a long-distance bus trip. It is a microcosm. You are going to meet a cross-section of society in that metal tube. And I swear, I was a weirdo magnet. Every whack job in the American Southwest was on that bus, and somehow or other they all managed to sit next to me. And sometimes it was funny, sometimes it was a little concerning, like when one of the passengers' suitcases busted open and they found a very large collection of knives. Some kitchen knives, some hunting knives, some combat knives, and they had to have the police come and talk to this gentleman, and found out he just liked collecting them. He was totally harmless, and he didn't have any priors, and he was just very cooperative with them. They didn't let him back on the bus, thank heavens. They wanted to keep him, and the bus driver said, well, I have a tight schedule, so you'll have to get the next one. And I have no idea how that turned out, but he was a quiet fellow who kept to himself. And then there were plenty of experiences I had when I was over in Africa. I did a lot of philanthropy work over there, and sometimes you ended up in not so nice situations, which really, yes, when I have to talk about a character, when he or she is in a really not nice situation, I know exactly what's going through their mind. I know exactly how desperately they're trying not to crap their pants. I'm knowing exactly how desperately they are hoping and wishing they could be any place else but there. Because, been there, done that. Lost a t-shirt. But yes, if you're going to write, you're going to add a whole new dimension to your stories if you can draw from a life experience. To give you one example, and it's a very classic one. Everybody's familiar with The Lord of the Rings. What Tolkien was drawing from in a lot of those situations were the experiences that he and his friends went through during the First World War. And that gives everything an element of realism, of believability, the ability to draw you in and make you a part of the story, because you're understanding somebody is relaying their experience, a first-hand experience, and they're doing it in such a way that you can feel what they're feeling. And when you realize what they've done, you understand how you could experience what they were feeling. And that's not to say that a really good storyteller can't carve something out of whole cloth and, talk about something they've never done. Like, for example, the fellow who wrote The Red Badge of Courage was born years after the Civil War had been fought. But he wrote a fantastic American classic based on experiences of soldiers in the Civil War. Now, while he himself hadn't lived through the Civil War, a lot of Civil War veterans were still alive when he was growing up. He heard their stories. He experienced what they went through. Today, it would be like somebody writing about the Vietnam War or Not so much the Second World War, because there aren't too many of those veterans left around. But Vietnam, Korea, these are the old timers that you see with the veterans' hats. And if you understand what they went through, you understand how they are 100 times cooler than Chuck Norris or anybody else that we, put up as a hero. But by hearing their experiences, by learning from them, you can retell that story. Life experience, directly or indirectly, has to be an element of storytelling. Otherwise, you've got a textbook. Textbooks have their uses too. I love sitting and reading a history book. Oh boy, you can really get me with a good story.